How can the Miami Hurricanes turn this signature win against Texas A&M into even more success on the recruiting trail?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Bringing on our recruiting expert, because I got to figure, not only did Miami win, they looked really good. They had some style points on Saturday. Brian Smith is with us. He's my colleague at allhurricanes.com. He is the recruiting overlord in these parts on the Locked On College Network. Brian, how are you, sir?
I am doing well, and there's a lot of discussion about recruiting we need to get into today. It's fun. This is fun.
First of all, big picture wise, I know there's a lot of wide receivers out there. You know, unfortunately, Jeremiah Smith wasn't at the game. He chose to go to Ohio State, where he is verbally committed to watch them play Youngstown. But I know Jeremiah has heard and probably seen what happened at Miami on Saturday, because there are a lot of Hurricanes recruits and even upperclassmen players who have been tweeting at him nonstop the last couple of days. Brian, a lot of these wide receivers, Jeremiah included, have wanted to see if Miami can open up the passing game, if they can go downfield, if they can go vertical. They did just that, and they had 3 wide receivers on the field putting up big numbers in that win against A&M. So how long can that sort of a performance go to swaying some opinions on wide receivers who weren't so sure about Miami?
If that didn't help, I don't know what does. I mean, 21 of 30, 374, 5 scores, and 0 interceptions. The last time I checked, that was good. So let's be honest. I mean, I was at field level. You were in the booth. From any angle, if you were in the 3rd row or the 80th row, Miami's receivers annihilated A&M's DB. I mean, it was bad. I went to the Texas A&M board, one of the boards, and one of the guys just had his opinion on it. And he's like, look, they got 5-star D line, but secondary's got a bunch of 3-star guys. And it showed against he let into the A&M conundrum that they have, because they got problems back. Guys were scot-free. They were beating them with moves. They were beating them with speed. They were beating them with size. Miami, I mean, it was just a complete mismatch. It's funny how the people that were talking trash on various sites and social media from A&M have disappeared. It's that program. I don't know what it is, man. They are just completely in a funk, and they have been for. It's bizarre, but that's another story. Miami's receivers played well. I just finished an article at All Hurricanes talking about from field level what it was looking like, and the recruits were dialed into it. It's very unusual. Most recruits go to games for fun. They talk to you like they were up in it. And the warm-ups, the whole 9 yards, it was totally different. There are details in the article. It's called Miami Recruiting Notes, but it was insane how much different than it usually is. And they had, like, Lightfoot was there all the way from Chicago. The LJ McCray was there. They had all kinds of guys at the game. And it was just a different vibe. Because, again, most times kids are, it's just kind of a bonus. They were into it. And how could you not like what you saw? Yeah. So if the kids aren't interested after that, I'm not sure Miami is the place for them.
We'll talk about a few 2024 prospects before we talk about some 2025s. Miami did get a 2025 commitment over the weekend that Brian and we will give you the full scouting report on Waden Charles. But Brian, I wanted to start with a defensive player, someone Jason Taylor is putting in the work with, who has been over the last couple of days crystal balled multiple times to land at Miami, and that's edge rusher Booker Pickett Jr. His father played at Miami in the mid-90s, so he's a legacy. And Booker Jr., he's a 4-star edge rusher, 6'3". He's out of Wharton in Tampa. He's listed around 205 pounds. I have a feeling he may already be heavier than that. Sometimes these recruiting site listings can be a little bit out of date. But what does the tape tell you? And you've probably even seen him in person. What have you seen on Booker Pickett Jr.?
I know him very well, actually. He is about 205.
Oh, really?
I call him peanut butter because I tell him every time I see him, I'm going to throw peanut butter at him if he doesn't gain weight. He gets mad at me, but he's just one of those kids, like a lot of Florida kids, that doesn't like to eat a lot. He just doesn't. But at the same time, he's going to have to gain weight at some point.
Yeah.
I've seen him 20 times. It's just incredible what his burst is like, and it's why Florida State and Miami and Ohio State and all these schools want him. You can put on the weight. You can't teach the length and the twitchiness. He is a pure outside pass rusher coming off the edge, trying to bend the shoulder to get underneath the offensive tackle. Simple as that. I asked him, and that would have been late July. I talked to him at the Tampa media session for all the high schools they have there. And he was talking about the different schools. Florida State, Miami, Ohio State would be the ones I would watch. And then here recently, he just got crystal balled. His parents would like him to go to Miami. They both went there, but he said they're not like pushing. He said, they're cool with it. But I knew that at some point he was going to visit. If he, saw that game, pretty easy to like what they did on defense too. They got a lot of pressures. They didn't get Wegman down, which is kind of odd, but they were all over him. He just kept getting the ball away late.
Yeah, I think they led. I saw a stat this morning, Brian, that Miami actually led the nation in quarterback pressures this past weekend. So what Wegman did an awesome job, just like escaping the rush, but they were in his grill the whole game.
He's an instinctive kid, and he threw it away a few times smartly. Yeah. He's a smart young man, but Miami did a good job, and there's a chance to play. Miami rotated D linemen like crazy. I kept watching Ruben because, he's a special player, and it's a kid I know, and they were bringing him in and out. They know that you have to do that in South Florida heat. If you don't rotate down there it's not going to end well. And it's one of the reasons in the fourth quarter Miami's DNs got after it. I'm sure that Pickett would love to be a part of that because he fits what they're doing. They're very aggressive up front and getting after it. Blitzes too. I was impressed with what Guidry did with the defense. So, yeah, Pickett would fit in. I know he likes Miami a lot, and his parents flat out want him to come to Miami too.
All right, so let me ask you a follow-up because you were at field level. You had a way different vantage point than I did, up in the booth and in the press box. You mentioned you were watching Ruben Bain. How did he look to you? What did you see from his reps?
The thing that's most interesting about Ruben, because he's a freshman now, he's in the give or take 275 to low 280 range. He is one of the strongest kids, just natural power that you're going to see. But Mario mentioned, if you recall, right at the beginning of fall camp, he went from a 250 bencher to around 400 since January. That's one of the biggest leaps I've ever heard of for anybody in my lifetime. He went from 255, 260 his senior year to the spring. He told me he was about 270, and then Mario said he's around 280. He's playing stand-up outside linebacker part of the time at 280. I don't think there are 2 or 3 guys like that in the NFL that do that. He's very, very rare, but he can also just take on a guy and hold a spot. I mean, A&M's O-line's humongous, as you would expect. I was very impressed with him more against the run than the pass because young guys like him can rush the passer. But on 3rd and 2, can you hold your water when they're coming downhill at you? Because that's some big boys, and he could. His upside is just through the roof, and I think he will eventually be a first-round draft pick.
Well, we have so many players to talk about here with Brian Smith. We got to talk about the mainland high school duo, LJ McCray and Zay Mincey. We're at the game. We got to get the full scouting report on the newest Canes commit, Waden Charles. My friends, as we like to say, we are only getting started on this episode of Locked On Canes. So you're going to want to keep it locked. Guys, you have to be checking out Game Time for these last-minute ticket deals. I know a common complaint for this Miami Texas A&M game was they just overpriced the tickets for the first-round sale. If you were checking Game Time in the Game Time app day of, you were getting deals around $35, $36. It used to be a stressful experience buying tickets at the last minute, and you never know if you were getting a good deal. let me assure you, you always get the very best deals at Game Time, and they guarantee that. They've got these flash deals and last-minute tickets, and it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show. They've got it at Game Time. You can get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what you're looking at. And let me tell you about the Game Time guarantee. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price, because if you find tickets in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has it for, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So you win either way. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Alex Donno alongside Brian Smith. And for the everydayers, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, sign up for our exclusive SMS texting community through Subtext. We include the link in the show description below. You can ask me one-on-one questions. I give you guys scoops and reports. I was, sending out live updates from Mario Cristobal's presser yesterday, recruiting updates. Try it free for 14 days. Click the link in the show description below. Then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there. All right, so Brian, let's start with LJ McCray was at the game. He said he enjoyed his visit, but he keeps whatever he's thinking, he keeps it pretty close to the vest. I know Florida, Georgia, some others really want the 4-star defensive lineman out of Mainland High School. This is what he said about his visit on Saturday. He was at the Texas A&M game. Leaving this visit, I feel good about Miami. I'm glad that I came. They definitely left a good impression on me. This was kind of a statement win to show what they have been saying is real. And that last part of the quote, Brian, was a money quote, because you can tell recruits what you're trying to do, and then once they actually see it displayed on the field, that's a whole different thing.
It's amazing what one situation can really do. Again, before the game, and I'm just taking photos. The offensive linemen were there. I was watching Mirabal, and like even the defensive players. There was a couple of plays where they were going at it. They brought some of the defensive guys over, etc. LJ McCray and them were like right in front of me, and they're just a few feet away, and they were engaged. Again, oftentimes these kids, when they go to the games, they're on their phones.
Yeah.
They're talking. They're looking at the girl. I get it. Because it's, a crappy game or whatever. But that was A&M. It was a unique out-of-conference game. You have like one or two of those a year, and Miami capitalized. There were a bunch of underclassmen there. There were players committed to other schools. I'll leave that alone for now. That were there, LJ, Zay, etc. They did a tremendous job. And they're all up there just like watching and engaged. That's how I knew this was different. And again, they were 5-10 feet away from me. It's not real hard to tell. So I was very, very happy to see that, because number one, too many kids waste these opportunities, and two, good for Miami. Their coaching staff has put in the time to get them engaged. That's just working time. There is no shortcut. And I mentioned this again in the article I put up today. Some of the prior staffs at Miami, not so much in that category. They failed. And then when the kids came, it was, whatever. That's why you have to do it every single day. Recruiting is so important. Mincey, I think, will be a kid what we're going to talk more about here pretty soon. But McCray is the one that is everybody's after. Like Georgia flew one of their coaches down recently to see him in the private jet, just to see him, just flew to Florida. That's how good he is. So it's a really important recruitment.
Where do you think Miami stands with him?
Right now, I think they're in the midst. There's 4. It's 4 to Florida State, Miami, and Georgia. And it just depends on who you talk to. I'm going to go see him Friday and see him play. He's not a kid that's going to give me a lot, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, he's a kind of a quiet kid. But I mean, his tape is ridiculous. So I'm curious to see what he has to say. If he gives me something about Taylor or Big Joe or whatever. I'm curious which coach or coaches are recruiting him. I've heard Miami dislikes him. I mean, he could play D tackle or he could play D end. I'm curious which one he ends up playing, or if not both, because he's just ridiculously tall. He's at least 6'5", and he walked by. He's at least 6'5", but he can bend so well. He could play inside at that, and that is a huge advantage. Get your hands up to knock down passes, to use his length. I'm going to try and get a little bit from him on Friday, but no guarantees.
This is one of the so Miami is also very much after his teammate on his mainland defense, Zay Mincey, 4-star safety, priority Hurricanes target. The way he's planning to go about his commitment is something you don't see a lot these days, Brian. So Zay Mincey says he is going to commit as early as this week, but he's going to do it silently wherever he commits to. He plans to keep his commitment under wraps publicly and not reveal that, I guess, until National Signing Day. I mean, we don't see that very often these days, right? Where a young man plans to commit silently. And, how uncommon is that, number one? And then number two, how tough is it going to be to keep that secret? Because I'd figure there's going to be some people trying to leak that over the next couple months.
Well, the second part is interesting because you're right. Secrets in today's society, they don't last very long, just in general, recruiting included. But my guess is he just doesn't want to hear the garbage on social media. Why didn't you pick this school? Yeah. That's something like it's something that started more and more where the recruits are kind of tired. Jeremiah is a good example. They're tired of hearing schools bitch. It's because it's so tribal. It's either us or you're against us. And that, that's not what recruits are trying to hear. So I think parents might have a little bit to do with that too. They don't want to hear it because they don't want to read about their kid getting smashed. So, but I don't know how you keep that a secret for that long either. I don't know why you would say that you're going to do that. He could have just committed silently to school X and not told anybody. That would have been a little bit different. I'm not really sure. I'll have to ask him about it when I see him Friday. He's a great kid, very smart, but I'm curious about that as well.
Yeah. All right. So we do have a new Miami Hurricanes commit. And, potentially Hurricanes could be going after a teammate of his as well. Looks like Palm Beach Central is loaded with wide receivers these days. We want to talk about Waden Charles when we come back. Alex Donno alongside Brian Smith, our recruiting overlord. You want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. And I know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel. Week 1 of the NFL is in the books. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you're happy. If you're a Miami Hurricanes fan, you were happy about week 2 in college football. And there is so much football left to play, my friends. Get ready for this NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the very best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything from spreads to player props and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. And for your second listen and for your Friday listen, my friends, college football season is here. This season, Locked On has been kicking things up with our coverage on Locked On College Football Live. Each Friday, Locked On goes live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel, including this one. College Football Kickoff Live covers playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and we go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss this. All right, Brian, we got a new Hurricanes commit for 2025. I had a chance to watch this player a little bit at Legends Camp, and he was a standout. And I remember a lot of folks telling me before and after Legends Camp that Waden Charles, 6'2", 185-pound wide receiver out of Palm Beach Central, that he really, really likes Miami. That was confirmed on Sunday night when Waden Charles committed to Miami. What can you tell me about this player?
Length. That's the first thing that stands out. I think that he's a kid that's not done growing, especially getting wider. There are a lot of kids that get to like 16, 17 years old. They're kind of done. I've stood next to him a few times. His body's going to fill out. He'll be over 200 pounds. He can really break down and make cuts and moves, though, despite his length. A lot of guys are bigger. They're a little more straight line in how they play. Waden's not that guy. He can move, he can cut, and he can go get it. So he had offers from all the big boys already. This is a big get. Miami's got, now think about it. They got a quarterback and a receiver that are coveted by the national elite already. 25 class only has 2 kids, but you're really not going to do much better than what they've done so far. So that's a good start for the Canes. And this is also a South Florida kid that knows all the other players down there. He's going to be somebody that's going to be able to help recruit other guys.
Yeah.
He could play flanker. He could play split end. I mean, there's so many bonuses to getting this young man early. Congrats to the Miami staff.
Now, Miami has also become the trending leader for Kamare Williams, who's another Palm Beach Central wideout, 4-star, 6'4". He's a little taller at this point, 174 pounds. Miami, according to the On3 tracker, Miami has a slight lead over Florida, Florida State, and Auburn also in the mix for him. Kamare Williams, he the real deal?
I saw him this spring at a practice, and I was told the next guy up. He was at Chaminade then he transferred to Palm Beach Central. They have so many players at Chaminade. He just wanted to play earlier and went to Palm Beach Central. But at the same time, I'm like, if this guy's your backup, because he would have been the best receiver at a lot of schools.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Jeremiah and all these guys at Chaminade. But anyway, again, length, speed, breakdown, and he's a great kid, super kid. So I'm going to guess that Miami is going to have to work to get him just like anybody else, but they are the trending pick, and his recruitment is going to just go through the roof. He's a 30-40 offer kid. He's going to go wherever he wants. Can't teach that size, brother. He's eventually going to grow into that outside boundary receiver, I think. And he's shifty enough to still play flanker, but I love those big guys out there one-on-one. Look what, Jacoby George gets all the single coverage and stuff on the other side. They don't have anybody to guard Colby Young for A&M. So A&M doesn't. What's everybody else? When you got that big body guy at boundary, man, it's hard. I could see him being 200 pounds in a couple of years and being that guy with his speed. Miami's receiving corps could be very, very good. You put him and Waden together.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Miami's never had a hard time getting slots. There are plenty of those in South Florida. Getting the bigger guys is the key. If you get 2 right off the bat, my gosh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and they've already got an excellent quarterback, as we've talked about, committed for that class in Luke Nichols. So it's nice that, Luke and Waden Charles can already kind of, start maybe, find each other during the offseason, do some workouts and stuff and start working together. And 2024 quarterback, Brian, we haven't talked enough the last few weeks about Judd Anderson, because Judd, he made a big move in the high school ranks. He left Jones County, and, you may know better than I do, but it seemed like Jones County, there wasn't a whole lot around him there, like not really, not a great supporting cast to kind of help elevate him. He transfers after the first 2 games of the season into a powerhouse program nearby in Georgia in Warner Robins. And he's been doing really well there, Brian. So what's Judd been up to over these last couple of weeks? And how do you think that move, he's already committed to Miami, but how is that move going to help him prepare for the college level?
I chatted with him a little bit on Twitter about that. And that coaching staff at Warner Robins, it's one of the best in the South. They've won state titles recently, and they have a lot of players. They got a receiver that's committed to Georgia Tech that can go to any school in the country, and they've got other players around. Their offensive line is humongous, the whole 9 yards, but it's the structure. They do a great job. They have kids that aren't going to college that are still contributing. That's the key. And when you have that kind of chemistry, it's going to help a quarterback. And for whatever reason, Judd just looks better. I watched a little of his film. I'm like, okay, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something that's bonding here. He had a couple pretty decent receivers over John, but they don't have the same linemen and stuff as Warner does. That's the different. Warner Robins, that's a whole nother animal. And again, it's coaching. So he's happy where he's at. He's thriving. He enjoys what he's doing. So good for him. And it's going to help him in his career when he gets to Miami too. The more coaching you get now, the easier it gets.
I love it. Excellent job as always here by Brian Smith. You want to follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. And check out his work at allhurricanes.com. I write for that site as well, and Brian does a tremendous job. Always great to have a colleague like this. And Brian, thank you so much for the time. And actually, let me ask you one more thing before we wrap it up, because Miami does have a game this week, Bethune-Cookman. I don't know how much we're going to learn about the Canes in this game, but I do get the feeling that a lot of young players, hopefully a lot of young Canes, are going to get into this game. So what can a game like this do for building experience?
Well, the kid that I want to see play, because I was watching him in warmups, I always watch Ruben because I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, me too.
Is Jaden Wayne. When he walks out on the field, you go, oh, who's that? Because he just kind of looks the part. Now, he hasn't, I don't know if he's played much, if at all. I mean, he may have a tackle or something, but he needs to get reps now. He's not a kid that's going to stick around for a 5th year anyway. That's not going to happen. You got to play him. So I'm curious to see how much he and other players in this talented freshman class, along with a few of the redshirt freshmen, kind of get a chance. Popo, some of those other guys, because like hats off to Francis Malagoy for starting, but his brother, Francisco, has done a really good job at middle backer. And now, again, I'm hoping there shouldn't be much reason for him to play in the second half.
Yeah.
How do those linebackers come in and play? I'm hoping all that happens. It's important. They have to know what it's like to be in a game environment, get the coaching, the rotations, all that. Because if you're eventually going to play against Florida State and Clemson, those kind of teams, you got to go through it now. So it'll be very interesting. The second half of that game will be the most fun for me of any game this year, which it should be, because you get to see all the kids that you talk to during recruiting. So I'm excited for that.
I love it. Be sure to support Brian's work. And if you want to support our show, sign up for our exclusive subtext SMS texting community, link in the show description below. You can also support us by simply hitting that thumbs up button. Hit that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version, which is awesome because you can take us with you wherever you go, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Odyssey app. Make sure to hit 5 stars and subscribe to our channel. And we will talk to you again next time. We'll have a Truth Teller Wednesday, Truth Teller Tuesday on a Wednesday tomorrow, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.